How do you start building a deck? You don't just grab the first 60 cards that you find on the kitchen table. Every deck starts with a vision, something that makes it worth playing. A special sauce. What is the best thing that your deck can do? Maybe it's fast and runs your opponent over. Or it could be a toolbox with a different way to counter each of the other meta decks. Or maybe you just want to chuck down big guys and play disruption every turn. But no matter what, your deck is going to have something that it wants to do. Now, let's take a look at a deck that knows what it wants to do. Here's my list from the 2023 World Championships, where I made it all the way through the day one slog and then managed to finish in the top 64 overall, with 3 trekking shoes in my list. When I was building this deck, the core goal I had in mind was to get 7 cards in the Lost Zone as quick as possible. From my testing, I figured out that if you can get those Mirage Gates going before your opponent has a chance to attack, you can just snowball the entire game from there. You knock out their Arceus, their Lugia, or you get a Greninja and a couple of routes, you've basically won. So why is there no Palpad, no Roxanne, no Clara? Because none of those cards help me to get towards that goal of going fast in the first couple turns. Running these cards would be playing to not lose, rather than playing to win. Sure, they may benefit me in the late game, but it's antithetical to the deck's vision to even try and make it to the late game. Trekking Shoes, while overall generally a worse card, in the context of this deck are incredible. Not only having synergy with Pokestop, but they really help to lean into that dream of the turn 1 Mirage Gate, and since I'm not planning on having a powerful late game, I can freely toss away resources to dig for an even stronger start. Another list with a very clear vision is this Gardevoir 60 that I played to NAIC just last month, which was better piloted by Henry Brand all the way to a top 32 finish. This deck strives to attain the pinnacle of Pokemon Trading Card Game board states, which is slamming down a Gardevoir, 2 Monkey Dories, putting a Dark Energy onto each of them, and we'll do that as soon as possible. There are some obvious standard Guardy cards which are missing, like the Drifloons and the Bravery Charms, but this space has been put towards reaching that double monkey board state more efficiently and effectively, because that's what we determined to be the strongest thing that you can do. The addition of Rare Candy allows for the possibility of Gardevoir EX a turn earlier than usual. Squawkabilly provides more draw on the first turn in order to set up even more aggressively. And the extra Earthen Vessel helps to thin out the deck and ensure that we're never missing out on those dark energies. Now, one card that's in the list that doesn't work towards that goal is the Enhanced Hammer. I didn't want to play it. It doesn't help me get monkeys on the board. It doesn't help me attach dark energies to them, and it doesn't help me spread damage anywhere. But sometimes it is necessary to stray from a deck's main goal in order to solve an otherwise losing matchup, especially when that's the most popular archetype in the room. We didn't start with this card in the list, and I don't think you should almost ever start with a tech card in your initial list when you're testing. It's something that you kind of figure out that you really need by getting beaten over and over again by a Lugia who just keeps hitting you with turn 2 Iron Hands every game. Now, I could have put 4 Enhanced Hammer in the list, and then that would have helped me out even more in the Lugia matchup, and I could have also put in a Toadscroll line to help out with that pesky Qian Power matchup. And at that point, we'll put in a Spirit Tomb as well, just in case I run into any Mew VMAX, because I know the entire deck's rotated, but you never know. Maybe I just run into a Mew VMAX. I'd want to have that Spirit Tomb in there just in case. If you're adding too many of these tech cards, you're going to take away from what the deck wants to do and ruin a perfectly good list with a whole bunch of cards that just really don't need to be there. And oftentimes, the deck that you're teching for isn't even that popular. It's better just to take the L in exchange for improving your matchup elsewhere. But not all deck visions are about making a super streamlined deck that is hyper consistent at doing just one thing. Here's a list that I played to a whole bunch of cups towards the end of last season to some pretty great success. I even managed to gaslight Jeremy Lim into playing it at LA Regionals, where with less than 24 hours practice on the deck, he was able to make his first day 2 of the season. What this deck wants to do is to have an answer to every popular deck in the meta, a true toolbox, and like all good toolboxes, it's full of tools, and you can grab any 2 of those tools by throwing a Rangaroo V into the active. Usually it'll be a Forest Sealstone, plus whichever other tool you feel like you need for that specific matchup. By focusing on the strengths of Rangaroo V, backed by the high counts of switch cards that Lostbox already runs which enable it, I was able to build a deck entirely around the monkey. With Rangaroo V as the starting point, I was able to utilize options such as an easily accessible Prime Catcher. All I need is a Nest Ball to grab the Oranguru, a switch to put in the active, and I've got my Prime Catcher. An Iron Hands with a Future Booster Energy Capsule that can steal an extra prize against 140 HP Ancient Pokemon, Lugia, Pidgeot EX, and a Minior that I can throw some glasses on and absolutely destroy my opponent's Iron Hands, as well as a whole bunch of other creative possibilities. In doing all of this, I was able to free up a bunch of space by getting rid of the Dark Energy and the Dark Pokemon, and allow the deck to just excel at what it was designed to do pretty much every game. Now, I'm going to quickly go through a few more recent decks that I didn't play myself, but I'm a very big fan of. We'll start off with Alex Shkamansky's Lugia build from NAIC, and what I love about this is that not only is his deck so different from every other Lugia, but he was also the highest placing Lugia, which means he was definitely doing something right other than just being a great player. It is very clear that at some point he sat down testing Lugia and came to the conclusion that the best thing you can do is to smack your opponent with an Iron Hands and take that extra prize with amp you very much. And in order to support this vision, he's added in an extra Iron Hands, as well as 2 Lightning Energy and an Earthen Vessel. That's 4 extra cards. So where does he find this space over a standard Lugia list? He's completely removed the thick Cincino line down from a 3-3 to a 0-0, not running any of those rats. Instead, to fill the need for some high damage attackers, he's added in a Drapion V and a Weirdia V. And while they don't hit quite as hard, and they aren't 1 prizes like Cincino, they are way more space efficient, taking up only 2 slots rather than 6, opening up those additional 4 spots that we needed for the cards I mentioned before. And this really just helps to enable that double Iron Hands dream that he was going for, and it worked out great. Next up, we got a couple of decks from the big man himself, Tord Reklev. And I think this is just an incredible deck. What he saw here is that Charizard's pretty good. Control, pretty good. Put it together, well, that sounds great. Obviously, there have been some compromises which were made in order to fit in both of these packages to a single deck. For example, the Charizard line is noticeably thinner, and there aren't quite as many control tools available. But just about every single card here has been included with the intention of combining the best aspects of each deck. And then he did it again with Dragapult. Charizard's pretty good. Dragapult's got a great attack. You stick them together. And this isn't just a Charizard deck with a Dragapult slapped in there for fun. This deck was built from the ground up with the vision of combining the two. Also, he did this. He definitely saw something here. There's a vision. There's 60 cards on the screen. There's something. Now, as a little treat for watching this much of the video, I want to quickly bring up a few cards from the next set, which will be our world set, that I can definitely see a vision for. Whether or not they're actually good, who knows? But there are absolutely some interesting ideas here that you could build a deck around and explore. We'll start off with an obvious one, which is Turbo Dusclops. The idea here being that you can turbo out a bunch of Dusclops, send them all to the Lost Zone with Lost City while spreading damage on your opponent's board, and then finish everything off with Sableye. There's a good chance that you've already seen this Japanese list floating around, and I think it's a sick idea. Imagine wiping your opponent's entire board on turn 2. That's incredible. But it's got some pretty massive flaws, especially when it comes to dealing with those big 2 prize decks. But if you can figure out an answer to them, you might have something. Next up, we have this Weavile, which I haven't seen too many people talk about. And just for 2 water energy, you can deal 70 damage and paralyze them. 2 water energy for deal 70 damage and paralysis. Where have I seen that before? Seems pretty good. Now, you do have to discard all of the energy from the Weavile after using the attack, but luckily, there's a new tool also coming out in this set, the Power Hourglass, which lets you attach a basic energy from your discard to that Pokemon if it's in the active at the end of your turn. Which means now you're just 1 energy attachment away from paralyzing them again. Is it better than Articuno? I don't know, but it has its benefits, and you can 100% build a deck around it. Lastly, I want to talk about this new Petron, which has an ability where if it's in the active at the end of your turn and your opponent's Pokemon is poisoned, they take an additional 50 damage between turns. What I immediately see here is a way to donk your opponent before they even take a turn. If they have a 70 HP guy in the active at the start, say a Ralts, a Comfey, Dreepy, Charmander, and they don't have another Pokemon to bench, which happens more than you might realize, you can poison them with a Brute Bonnet that has an Ancient Rooster energy capsule attached, chuck that Petron in the active, and now you're just 10 damage away from winning the game before your opponent can do anything. And there are so many ways to get this last bit of damage too. Iron Valiant, Perilous Jungle, Radiant Sneasler. Plus, you can include all of those turn 1 draw options like Squawkabilly and Carmine. We'll have to wait and see if anyone can bring this vision to life. But winning a game before my opponent plays a card seems pretty broken. To wrap things up, the main thing that I want you to take away from this video is that every deck should have a clear vision, and that every one of those 60 cards that you choose to include should be aligned with that primary goal. And if they aren't, then they'd better be solving some key flaw or matchup that you just really can't live with losing to. Anyway, I appreciate everyone who made it through the entire video, and I'd love it if you left some feedback, thoughts, discussion in the comments. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next video.